Welcome back to Humans of Campus Housing. My name is Leo Llanos, and we're really excited to talk about this episode because today we're going to be diving into a topic that impacts every corner of campus housing, and that's mental health. Today, we're joined by two incredible guests. First up, we're welcoming back someone who joined us recently and brought some great insights, and that's Zach Cleland, who is the crisis counselor at Mount Rogers Community Service. Hi, Zach. How's it going?
Hey, doing good.
Zach, we're so happy to have you back for another important conversation. And we're also joined by Ryan Gallik, managing partner at the Mental Hygiene Project. Ryan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our time together and really bringing light to such an important topic.
Absolutely. Ryan, to kick things off, can you give our listeners a quick overview of what the Mental Hygiene Project is all about?
Yeah, the Mental Hygiene Project is an Orlando-based company that really strives to focus on two pillars: leadership development and well-being and empowerment. And it's under the construct that we really focus on empowering minds, accelerating performance, and boosting resilience. And resilience can be defined typically as the ability to bounce back, yet we believe resilience is the ability to withstand, recover, and grow.
That's amazing. It sounds like your perspective will really help add some depth to this conversation and give us new ways to think about supporting mental well-being in campus housing. I want to start off by asking Zach, from your experience on campus, what's the current state of mental health support in student housing?
I think it varies a lot depending on the institution you're at, especially when you're looking at support. It's what resources are available. And I sort of break it up into three categories. So there is the student mental health, which for the most part, if you think of your stereotypical college student, they are at a point in human development when their brain is still finishing developing. They are going through a lot of personality changes and growths. And then we also have the social moment where we're now sending them off to college, where they're moving away from home often and losing that structure they had before. And when those two things come together, it sort of creates the perfect opportunity for mental health issues to start showing up because you're still developing and you now have all these new stressors. And when you introduce new stressors, that's when you find out that, oh, you know what? I was struggling with ADHD, but I didn't know it because I had systems in place and I had structure. High school classes are really structured in a way that helps ADHD in general because you have a very time focused task and you have the work in front of you and you get it done. And then you go off to college and you no longer have that structure and you have, hey, here's your assignments for the entire semester, make sure you get them done. And you don't have that do it right now while it's right in front of you. And all of a sudden you find out, hey, my systems don't work anymore. What's going on? And so it creates a sort of perfect breeding ground for mental health issues to start showing themselves. And then I also think when we're talking about housing, the professional side of it. So our professional staff, particularly our live-in folks who are living where they work. They are working with students directly. They are serving on call and responding to everything from maintenance issues to mental health issues. And how do you build a strong boundary between your work-life experience when you live, when you work? And then the third one is sort of the students who fall in a similar category. It's like our RAs, where they are students, so they're dealing with all those same stressors as the students, but they also help the professional staff in some way have some of those same stressors of they respond to calls. They often they may be the one that the student feels comfortable coming to and saying, "Hey, I'm feeling like killing myself," or "I'm struggling with this issue." So they have to bear the brunt of that in some ways. Yes, they should then be passing that off to the professional staff, and they should not be sort of handling that issue fully themselves, but they still have to deal with the mental stress from it. And so then it really comes down to what supports exist for those three areas: what supports exist for the students, what supports exist for the professional staff, and what supports exist for our students who also have these leadership roles.
Absolutely. Support is a huge issue right now. I was actually speaking with some professionals at a university recently who said it's really difficult to find how to communicate with students who don't fall in line of they're either leaders or they're students who would generally reach out if they needed help. Sometimes it's like the silent majority. It's really
Yeah.
difficult to try to get in touch with them and find out what's going on with them, which is really important. Ryan, what patterns or struggles do you see that could really resonate with student housing staff or residents from what you're hearing on what Zach is saying?
Yeah, what a great question. I really want to highlight everything that Zach said and echo that. Yet, I think it's important for everyone in that community, right, to understand that until you know someone's backstory, you don't know their full story. We don't understand what people have been through. And it's under the idea that your biography, the things that have happened to you in your life, become your biology. It becomes your nervous system. And we may be having different students or even people within our own housing that act differently, that think differently. And there's something called, I really want to bring different concepts here. And so there's something called attachment theory. And attachment theory is basically under the idea that it's from early childhood development. And Zach even said that these students are coming in and their brains and nervous system are still being developed. Yes, they're an adult technically, they're 18, yet that doesn't say that their body's fully developed. And attachment theory, again, comes from developmental psychology and is based on early childhood experiences. And for some, they have a secure attachment where they foster healthy relationships and really enjoy that closeness. Yet there's also three other types: anxious, avoidant, and disorganized or fearful. And each one of those categories, per se, we don't put people into categories, but the continua is that people act and react differently based on early childhood, the development. And the other thing is that I believe is really important for students to understand and not to burden them with one additional thing, yet we really have to look at our ACEs, and that is adverse childhood experiences. And I believe or know that all of those things, attachment theory, ACEs, really create much of who you are. So when we can, as an individual, understand what our attachment style is and what our ACEs score is, but also from an outsider's perspective, looking at someone else, saying again, until I know their backstory, I don't know their full story. Let's foster more empathy. That's really where we can be more empathetic and understanding of unique lived experiences.
Yeah.
You blew my mind, Ryan, when you mentioned biography to biology. I've never heard anything like that. That's really interesting. Um, Zach, I just wanted to ask you, considering Ryan's points on attachment theory and ACEs, how do you think these factors influence the mental health challenges faced by students in campus housing?
Oh, yeah, it definitely plays a huge role. I mean, you can be looking at a student who is a freshman who comes from a family with plenty of financial support and aid. They are a fifth generation student going to college. Both their parents have degrees. They don't rely on any scholarship aid or anything like that. And what is a crisis for them is going to be very different than what is a crisis for our student who is a first gen college student who doesn't have that family history and understanding of what the higher education system is and how it works, who does rely on scholarships that they have. That means for one student, failing a class can be a full blown crisis of, if I fail this, I'm going to lose my scholarship. If I lose my scholarship, I'm going to lose my housing. If I lose my housing, I can't attend college. If I can't attend college, I'm going to have to go back home to my family who I had my immediate family, aunts and uncles, pool money to send me here, and I failed all of them. That is very different than the student who has the financial support to be like, oh, if I fail this class, I'll take it again next semester. So having that sort of context uh, is very important, I think, when interacting with students, and to sort of default to, um, I guess when I think of crises, it's subjective. A crisis is subjective. And so to default to, if a student is telling you this is a big thing, listen to them. It's a big thing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Listening is really important in trying to understand all of that. Ryan, what do you think about what Zach said, and how can the principles of attachment theory and ACEs be applied to develop perhaps a more effective support strategy for these different groups?
Yeah, we developed a tool called situational communication, and we sometimes have people communicate, right? Take the word communicate, add trauma to that, communicate what's not yet healed. And faculty and staff need to ensure that they're communicating or communicating in a way that fosters safety and under some principle type guidelines per se. So safety is number one, where people feel like they can be vulnerable and to speak up and do that without fear of judgment. And that's typically why on housing or on campus psychological services are so beneficial. You have trained personnel that know how to communicate and interact with different types of people. I believe that your community helps build your immunity. So as a student, who is in your community? Are these people fueling you? Do they make you feel good? Is there a sense of belonging? I may be digressing here, but these are things that I truly see. One of my friends is a licensed mental health counselor on a campus, and another one of my mentors, her son is in college right now, and it's just through talking to them, discovering some of these. So again, I want to repeat one thing, is that your community can really build your immunity. These kids are young men and women and individuals are leaving their homes where they may have had that sense of safety and that structure. Now they're going to a completely new place where they don't have that community built. So they need to build that, because from a mental health perspective, relationships are incredibly important. And the research goes to show that during a mental health crisis or just a personal struggle, what tends to go first is our sense of relationships. So I think that's really important. Zach, do you want to add anything to what I just mentioned from your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. When you look at counseling, the largest therapeutic tool is the therapeutic relationship. We are relationally driven people, humans. We are. And so building relationships on campus, both helping students build relationships with their peers and groups and clubs and all these other activities on campus, definitely highly important. But that's also why it's important for the housing professionals to build rapport with their RAs, to be seen in the community, to show up to events, even if you're just seen there interacting to even a small degree, makes it a lot easier to then connect with a student when they are reaching out because they're in crisis, because they recognize you from this RA program that you showed up to support your RA and engage with the students. And very similar, sort of tying it to the counseling service on campus, it's very easy for there to be misunderstandings of what the counseling office does. It's very easy to get that negative mental health connotation of, oh, well, if I go there and I'm mentally unwell, they're going to send me to the hospital for 72 hours and they're going to institutionalize me and I can't do anything about it, which is not the case. And building that relationship from the housing side, one thing that I made sure to do was engage with the other people on campus that interact with the students in those ways. Building relationships as a professional staff member with other professional staff members on campus, whether it's your behavioral intervention team, your counselors on campus, and inviting them to things. Building events with them, like having RAs do their floor programming where they engage with our counseling office and have one of the counselors come and do something that, yes, helps support mental health, but is also just a human connection. Like we don't have to have them come in and give a lecture. We can have them come in and do building stress balls, doing a paint night, something like that, where there is a community aspect to it, so that those students then recognize these figures on campus as safe places.
Great feedback, Zach. I was actually going to ask what perhaps they could professionals could do to implement some of the things that Ryan was talking about. But it seems that we're almost out of time. Before we wrap this up, I'll start with you, Zach. Is there anything that maybe perhaps you could offer as far as feedback for anybody listening out there?
I think what I would say is give yourself some self-grace. In many ways, working in housing and higher ed in general is a helping profession. And people who are drawn to that often are very driven and very hard on themselves because they want to help everyone. You're not going to be able to help everyone, and that's okay. But what you can do is work on building that community. You'll hear it a lot in higher ed that we're silos. This office is doing this thing over here. This office is doing this thing over here, there. And I found that every institution I've been at, what has helped me build community and connect is to bridge those silos as much as possible and remind myself that we're all there doing the best we can.
Great feedback. Ryan, same question for you.
Yeah, the body keeps score, and it's important to manage your mind. Otherwise, your mind may begin to manage you. And if it does, it's okay to a certain point, but that's typically the first sign that talk therapy can really help you get through things. And when you're finding a clinician or you're using that on-campus psychological service, ensure that you find a clinician that is best for you. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of different certifications that counselors have. For instance, some of them are board certified in traumatic stress. One might be a certified grief counselor. And so we could go on and on. There's just a huge list of different types of certifications. So I would find out, are they a psychologist? Are they a licensed mental health counselor? What type of treatments do they provide? And what type of cultural intelligence do they have? So if you're identifying as LGBTQ+, do they have experience working with people like you? And it's really important to ask those questions. And if you're not happy with your counselor, know that you can get another one.
Zach, is there anywhere that you could that people can find more information on you, on what you're doing, and maybe anything else that maybe you perhaps want to let listeners know on?
Yeah, I don't have anything going on at the moment. Have a few things I think I do want to work on long term, but if people want to connect with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat with folks.
Awesome. And as well for you, Ryan, and also where can they find more information on the Mental Hygiene Project?
Yeah, they can visit www.mentalhygieneproject.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, Ryan Gallik, Gallik. For some reason, I have two profiles. One's of the firefighter, and another one is more of a professional photo. The profile today is the more professional photo, not the firefighter one. So please connect. I would love to chat with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's about all the time we have today. So mental health is such an important part of campus life. And I'm glad that we got to dig into that just a little bit. I'm sure that we could keep this conversation going as there's so much more to say on this topic because it's really important. And with that, I'd like to say huge thanks to Ryan and to Zach for being here and sharing your incredible insights with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.